Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to episode 26 of the Sneider Cut. I am your very handsome host, Jeff Sneider, and today is Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. Whether you have a significant other waiting for you at home or you're single and lonely, tonight's the night that could change. I actually got dumped on Valentine's Day once, guys, in 6th grade. I went to my temple gift shop, and I bought a little heart-shaped ring for this girl, Leah, and I bought her, like, a bunch of chocolates because my family was in the candy business. I gave them to her at school, and then I went and played basketball that night. I had a game, and I scored 14 points. Did really well. And I was so excited after the game, and I got home, and there was an actual voicemail on the family answering machine dumping me. It wasn't even Leah. It was her friend Ashley who dumped me on behalf of Leah. That is a tough thing to come home to at 12 or 14 years old. I forget how old I was. I think it was 12. 6th grade. That sounds about right. Anyways, enough of my teenage heartache, guys. What are we talking about this week? I just saw, oddly enough, an HBO Max like preview. They just debuted 30 seconds ago. And it is crazy how much stuff that service is going to have on it. What was more interesting is like what they chose to highlight. Like, you know, you got the DC stuff. So Joker, Batman, Wonder Woman, The Matrix, Austin Powers, which is New Line, the Lego stuff, and then HBO shows like Euphoria, Watchmen, and then old shows like Friends and 2.5 Men and Fresh Prince and South Park. They have the South Park rights as well. And then you have old movies like Wizard of Oz, Casablanca. Like it's a pretty. I am kind of looking forward to HBO Max, even though like their new programming isn't anything that, you know, has thrown me into a tizzy. There's nothing, I don't think that HBO Max is developing where I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait for that. I mean, I'm sure they have some decent stuff. I haven't looked at the entire list, but I mean, you know, a place like Netflix, I feel like there's something new each week that appeals to me and my taste. Anyways, HBO Max launching in May. Looking forward to, you know, seeing the interface and how it all works, in collaboration with HBO, all that. But it is very interesting that they are just like two totally separate entities. Like there are like middlemen executives who like bridge the gap between HBO Max and Warner Brother Pictures and Warner Media, or Warner Max. That was like the new film streaming division that they launched. There's just a lot of cooks in the kitchen over at Warner Brothers. I particularly liked The Ankler this week, which talked about Birds of Prey and how poorly it did at the box office this weekend, and how, you know, Deadline's box office report is like, well, you can't blame marketing for this one, guys. And it was just marketing throwing production underneath the bus. I mean, you may not be able to blame them. Like, you can, you know, it's tough to have the goods when you don't have the goods. Which I clearly didn't think if you watched last week's episode with regards to Birds of Prey. But like looking back at Warner Brothers' track record, this you know, these last few months, obviously Joker aside, which grossed $1 billion, it has been one flop after the other. Whether it's Motherless Brooklyn or The Goldfinch or countless other examples, it has really been quite something to see. Especially considering Warner Brothers typically has like the best marketing department in the business alongside Disney. So yeah, The Ankler was just a very fun read this week. I enjoyed that. There was a bit of about a tweet that Deadline had deleted. There was a bit on completely unnecessary character posters. Like, you know, like how far down the cast list do we have to go on these character posters? I think there was one, he was referring to one, I think it was David Densick for the new Bond movie, No Time to Die. And it's like, how is this photo of this middle-aged, pasty, nerdy-looking white guy, how is that supposed to excite teenagers to come see this movie, or anybody, really? He's absolutely right. It makes no sense. They're just getting so carried away with these character posters. If I don't know the character's name, it's irrelevant. So, yeah, if you are not subscribed to The Ankler, I would definitely recommend checking that out, at least until I launch my own newsletter, and then I will need your money. Drew McWeeny also going paid with his subscription newsletter this week. Be sure to check that out. Drew is one of the best writers on film. So I think he has some fun stuff to share with you guys. In the meantime, you're watching my podcast, and we've got lots to discuss today. Let's talk about this David O. Russell movie, which still does not have a title. The working title internally is Amsterdam. We got official news from the trades this week that Margot Robbie and Michael B. Jordan would be joining Christian Bale, both names that I've talked about on this podcast. I had sort of said that Jennifer Lawrence was the initial target, and then they pivoted to Margot, just as Jamie Foxx seemed to have been the initial target for David O. Russell, and then they seem to have pivoted to Michael B. Jordan. Michael B. Jordan and David O. Russell have wanted to work together for a while. If they weren't working together on this, I'd heard there was another new Regency project, The Skies Belong to Us, which is like about a African-American man who hijacked a plane, I think with the help of potentially a blonde woman. And so I'd heard that they were actually looking at Michael B. Jordan and Margot Robbie for this, for that movie. It turns out that they're working together on this one. And Michael B. Jordan may not be the only Michael in the cast. I've also heard that David O. Russell is going to be going after Michael Shannon, which seems like a great pairing. Mike Myers, who doesn't work that often anymore, but when he does, it's typically for a top-tier director like a David O. Russell, like a Quentin Tarantino. He obviously did, Bohemian Rhapsody as well. That was more because of the Wayne's World connection, I would imagine. And then Robert De Niro, also being eyed for a role in this project. De Niro obviously starred in Silver Linings Playbook and American Hustle and Joy. So he goes way back with David O. Russell. There's a real mutual respect there. And, De Niro just sort of carried a 3.5-hour Netflix movie. He may be looking for something a little bit smaller, another supporting role. And, getting to work with Margot and Michael B. Jordan. I think that's probably something that would appeal to Bob at this point. Still don't really know too much of what it's about. I'd heard that it was about a doctor and a lawyer forming an unlikely partnership, but we don't know really what genre it's going to be or what the tone is. I mean, David O. Russell's movies are typically kind of fun, and this is certainly a fun cast that he's putting together. We'll have to wait and see if Michael Shannon and Mike Myers end up signing on. But, I mean, De Niro I feel pretty good about that one. Who else would be great in a David O. Russell movie? Someone like Awkwafina. She did not sign on to this project. She has something else in the works. But I could see that being a fit down the line. Maybe not for whatever this movie is. Awkwafina, though, signed on to this project, The Baccarat Machine. I've never played Baccarat. I really just stick to poker and blackjack. I don't understand craps or even like, I know it's weird to say I don't understand roulette because what's there to understand? But I stick to those games when I'm at a casino. So Baccarat is out for me. But she's going to be playing Kelly's son, who is like this. I wanted to call her a poker princess, but it's she's teaming up with a legendary poker player in Phil Ivey. She was more of a gambling guru. It wasn't, if it's called the Baccarat Machine, I assume Baccarat is somewhat involved. So Kelly's son, it's a great true story, and I can't wait to see who's going to end up directing this. Kelly's son and Phil Ivey were ordered to pay back hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to this casino that felt like they had sort of, cheated the casino a little bit, cheated the house. I don't know if they're allowed back in that casino. I don't know if they ever pled guilty to anything. I actually haven't really read the story that this is based on. It's based on a story in Cigar Aficionado, which doesn't typically have a lot of articles optioned, but that's great for them. And I have been. It's funny. I have not been. I've been derelict in my news duties these last few weeks, dealing with Sundance and the Oscars, and there was just a ton to write up about Sundance. I literally just finished the other day, and I'd heard about this one, but hadn't really tracked it. I forgot that SK Global, who is behind this project, they also did Crazy Rich Asians, so they already had a relationship with Awkwafina. Super excited to see who they cast as Phil Ivey. I was looking at photos of Phil Ivey to try to pick somebody out, and it was tough. Nobody really completely looks like him. I don't know. I'm not even going to venture a guess on that one. But the Baccarat machine sounds really interesting. And Awkwafina, you know, in some of her choices, some of her abilities, because she's coming off I think it was the Golden Globe win for Best Actress in a Comedy Musical. Was it a Golden Globe or an Indie Spirit or both? I forget. It's all a blur already, award season. But she was really good in The Farewell. I had she was really good in Crazy Rich Asians. I mean, she's kind of playing the comic relief in that movie, kind of playing the comic relief in the Jumanji sequel as well. But The Farewell really proved that this is a young woman who can really act when she has the right material. This is a great story, and it could be her Can You Ever Forgive Me, which is another movie about a sort of, a hustler, a grifter who teams up with this gay man. Not to say Phil Ivey's gay, but, it's a male-female teaming up to sort of pull a con. And that got Oscar nominations for both Melissa McCarthy and Richard E. Grant. So maybe this is the sort of project with the right director that Awkwafina gets nominated for, that whoever plays Phil Ivey gets nominated for. I don't know if they're going to make it more of an Awkwafina movie because they have her. Like, I don't know if Kelly Sun is going to be positioned as the star, if this is a true two-hander. But I you know what I'm going to do later today? I am going to read that Cigar Aficionado story because this just sounds, really fascinating. All right. Couple TV shows in the news this week. The Mighty Ducks. The Mighty Ducks is going to star Lauren Graham from Gilmore Girls and Brady Noon from Good Boys. Loved Brady Noon as Thor. Thought he was hilarious, and he's got chops. Kid can sing. He can do everything. Lauren Graham as the mother. You could have fooled me. I might have even thought she was the mother in the original Mighty Ducks. She's just kind of like ingrained in my mind as that like perfect like suburban mom who's taking her kid to sports practices all the time. So I kind of love this casting. Of course, it all depends on whether Emilio was going to return. For some reason, they put out the first two names and they were like, well, I think Deadline had it in their story. They said Emilio is in talks to return. I don't even know how you make this series without Emilio Estevez. Like, Coach Bombay is the Mighty Ducks. And so, sure enough, 24 hours later, I don't know if they're, threatening to make this series without him. Emilio closed his deal. He's back in probably his most iconic role. I mean, I was listening to the Rewatchables this morning, and they were talking about him in The Breakfast Club and St. Elmo's Fire, and I was like, this is probably Apex Mountain for Emilio. Was the Mighty Ducks. This is a beloved film. And he's perfect. I don't know if he's still going to be Coach Bombay. A little creepy if he'd been coaching youth hockey for the last 30 years, but maybe he's that iconic youth hockey. I can't imagine that he will be. He's going to be the guy who they bring out of retirement or whatever, I bet, to coach this ragtag crew, which is not the Mighty Ducks. That's the new twist here, is that the Mighty Ducks, since making a name for themselves, became this powerhouse youth hockey team. Everybody wanted to play for the Ducks. They got really great, and this show is about a kid who gets kicked off the team and decides to start his own thing. So, who knows? Maybe there'll be another new NHL franchise or something. That is born out of this Disney Plus series. And speaking of Disney Plus, I feel like there's more in the moods. That's right. Josh Peck. Josh Peck starring in Turner and Hooch. I mean, these are big shoes to fill. Don't get me wrong. Tom Hanks is the man. I love Turner and Hooch. I love Turner and Hooch. It's amazing. Because it's like a family film that gets dark. And there's murder and kind of mystery to it. It's like a decent little whodunit. And, so big shoes for Josh Peck, but you know what? I always liked this guy, Josh Peck. I did. Even with the whackness, I liked him from the days when he was a little heavy. There's something about him. He's charming. Do I think he probably could have gotten somebody maybe a little bit bigger? Yeah. But I think Josh Peck's going to do a good job as in this Turner and Hooch series. It's just going to be about capturing that same kind of 80s tone. I'd like to see a little grittiness to it. I don't want this to be, necessarily for 8-year-olds. When Hooch's owner died in that movie, that's heartbreaking. And the dog is he goes over to him and just like sits by him. I don't know. That's probably one of my first exposures to like live action death in a movie. I mean, that felt realistic. That wasn't like about like Freddy Krueger killing somebody or whatever. I was like, oh no, this could really happen. There could really be a dispute at the docks and someone could get shot. And wow. Anyways, Turner and Hooch, love that movie. Now I want to watch that again this weekend. Man, two of my favorites though, Mighty Ducks and Turner and Hooch. Oh, to be an executive at Disney Plus. So you just have to go and remake your favorite childhood movies. Tough gig. Speaking of television, Ray Donovan, after last week's rant, I think Showtime was watching. Somebody over there was paying attention to the Snyder Cut because sure enough, Liev Schreiber took to Instagram the other day to say, there's hope. Okay? I don't have the whole quote in front of me. You can go to Collider, you can read the story, but he said something to the effect of, your voices have been heard. And there will be more Ray Donovan. They don't know where, they don't know when, which was interesting because other than the word Donna fans in there, which we don't call ourselves, Liev, please don't call us that. The most interesting word in that statement was where. He doesn't know where it's going to be. Well, if it's not on Showtime, where could it be? Viacom is doing a new streaming series that is going to sort of serve as an expansion of CBS All Access. And I'm sure everything will be available in a bundle because I don't understand how you have CBS All Access, Showtime, and now there's another one that's also going to incorporate the Paramount Network. I don't know if that will remain a standalone service or Paramount Network will be folded into this one. Like, are these services or are these just like divisions in a company with their own executives? Like, that's really what I'm not clear of. Anyways, could Ray Donovan sort of be used as the bait to entice people to sign up for this new Viacom streaming service? It seems like that would be a really smart play. Not that the Ray Donovan audience is enough to build a streaming service on, but even if you have, 1 or 2 million people who are really into that show and will follow it to the new service, that's a nice little base to build from. So I hope that they figure out, a proper ending to Ray Donovan. I hope that they get to, do some version of what David Hollander and his writing staff were working on. They had been devising a 2-season arc. I just felt like they totally left us hanging as fans, and we need some closure. So whether it's an abbreviated season or a 2-hour Ray Donovan movie or something like that, I'll take whatever it is because we need something a little bit more than the way that this last season ended on January 19th. Let's stick with Disney as well. More Disney. Aladdin 2 is in the works. I didn't see the first Aladdin. There were conflicting reports in the trade stories, by the way, this week that Guy Ritchie would return. Sounded like Variety, which broke the news, sort of said it's unclear whether Guy Ritchie is going to return, and THR said, oh no, he's back. I mean, Guy Ritchie did the first 2 Sherlock Holmes before handing over the reins of this upcoming third film to Dexter Fletcher. I think Guy Ritchie, I like seeing Guy Ritchie work like in his element and play to his strengths, which are things like The Gentleman, which I really liked. I really like his British gangster movies. I think that Guy Ritchie could be capable of doing something like the next Kingsman series, whatever that may prove to be. I just feel like his talents are sort of going to waste on this Aladdin movie, which, anybody could kind of come in and direct the sequel, which is kind of what we saw with Alice in Wonderland. I mean, not that the results were similar. Tim Burton's movie made $1 billion. James Bobin's certainly didn't. So I guess that's not accurate to say, but yeah, I even if this next Aladdin movie isn't as popular as the first, I feel like they could find someone else to do it. Anyways, they apparently, Dan Lin, Jonathan Eyrick, love Jonathan Eyrick, great guy. Dan Lin's a great guy too. They are the Aladdin producers, and they spent the last 6 months sort of figuring out a direction for the sequel. And I guess that's a good thing. I mean, you don't want to rush into anything. I never like to see that. Although, when you have $1 billion movie, you think you'd be able to crack it a little bit sooner. Either way, they took pitches from dozens and dozens of writers before settling on a take that they really liked, and they went with John Gatins and Andrea Berloff, who are 2 really good writers. John Gatins did Flight. Andrea Berloff did Straight Outta Compton. Those are both two solid movies. Berloff also directed The Kitchen, which didn't really work out. But, that may just be her directing. Like, as a writer, I think that she has a lot of really solid scripts under her belt. Same with John Gatins. And they hired two pros to come in and write a sequel to Aladdin. So even though this may not be for me, it's a no-brainer on Disney's behalf, particularly if they can kind of keep the cost down on the sequel. The first one, may have been a little bit more than they had anticipated or planned for. But now that you know that it can gross $1 billion, maybe that emboldens them to take some even bigger swings. Plenty of other writing stuff on the Disney front. I think, Michael Waldron. He came in to do the new Doctor Strange sequel, which is bringing in Sam Raimi. I'm sure Sam, I think it was Jade Halle Bartlett, which we had broken. She had written the script for Doctor Strange 2. She's going to be rewritten now. It's Michael Waldron, who I think worked on Loki. I don't think he was the showrunner. I don't think he was like the creator of the showrunner. He may have been the head writer. Forget how it was. But Sam Raimi probably came in, was like, hey, I'm down to do this, but these are certain things that need to be addressed in the script. And so, that's probably what happened with bringing in Waldron. The other thing to happen this week was Jennifer Caton Robinson coming in to work on the new Thor movie, Thor 4: Love and Thunder. So Doctor Strange 2, Thor 4, they're all in rewrite mode right now. I think I did see Someone Great with Gina Rodriguez, the Netflix movie, because that's my girl. I don't know, maybe I started it and didn't finish it. It was okay. I don't think it was, it didn't change too many lives, Someone Great, but, it's a cute little rom-com, and if they've got her addressing sort of Natalie Portman's stuff as Lady Thor, that makes a ton of sense to me, particularly with how busy Taika Waititi is at the moment, hot off his Oscar win. And we are going to talk about the Oscars. Don't worry, guys. I know that was just Sunday night, and we had about a half-hour show on FYC, so I didn't get to chime in on everything. I got more to say, but we'll save it towards the end of the show. We're also going to talk about that big Mark Ruffalo story that we did. What else? Maggie Gyllenhaal and Rufus Sewell cast as Elvis's parents in the Tom Hanks Baz Luhrmann movie that's going to star Austin Butler. Does he look like either Rufus Sewell or Maggie Gyllenhaal? Not that much. Yeah, I don't know. Elvis's mom, I think, had gotten a little big by the time that he had made it. Maggie Gyllenhaal is obviously very, very thin. I don't know if they're going to outfit her with prosthetics. Rufus Sewell, I can kind of see it in the eyes. I can see a little Elvis there. But yeah, I like the way Baz's movie is coming together. I don't know. There's one name I'd been tracking for it, and I don't know if it came out ever. But I'd heard that 1917 star George McKay was maybe going to play like Elvis's friend in that movie. But it also seemed like a sort of minor supporting role, and George McKay, I think, maybe a little bit bigger than that. At this point, after 1917, maybe not. Maybe he just wants to work with Tom Hanks and Baz Luhrmann. But I do remember him hearing him for that. So I don't know if that'll pan out or if they went in a different direction. Beats me. Clue, the Clue movie. James Bobin's coming in to direct. We just mentioned him. He did, he's the Flight of the Conchords guy who did the Alice in Wonderland sequel. This is going to star Ryan Reynolds. It's going to star Ryan Reynolds as Mr. Body. I'm told that that's who he'll be playing. So Ryan Reynolds is not going to be in the movie very long. He's the murder victim, unless it's all a ruse and they're pulling and then there were none, which is also that wasn't even on my list. I forgot. And then there were none got announced from Shrapnel and Waterhouse. I am so jealous that these guys get to write that. Like, I kind of had a feeling with the whole Murder on the Orient Express, Death on the Nile, Agatha Christie stuff. They just did a version with the BBC that I thought looked gorgeous. I was like, I don't know how you're going to make a better looking And Then There Were None than this BBC series. But I couldn't really tell you who was in it. So let me take you back. I read And Then There Were None freshman year of high school, immediately started adapting it as like a young wannabe screenwriter. It was the first thing I ever like tried my hand at. I never finished it, obviously, because I was in high school and played a bunch of sports. But I bet you I can find the poster that I made as a 15-year-old with all the different names. I can even remember who I wanted. So keep in mind, this was probably 1999. I think I wanted Kate Winslet as Vera Claythorne, either Kate Winslet or Gwyneth Paltrow. I had a whole, I beefed up the subplot about like Scotland Yard finding this letter from the eventual killer that washes up ashore. And yeah, so I had made the parts a little bit bigger. So it was like Brad Pitt, Ben Affleck as like the investigators, things like that. I wanted Dan Hedaya as General MacArthur. I wanted Anthony Hopkins as Judge Wargrave. I wanted Rupert Everett as like the butler guy, and I think it was Natasha McElhone, who I had just seen in Ronin, to be his wife. So like, yeah, they would be the two like housekeepers or whatever. I wanted Kathy Bates as Mrs. Brent. I'm trying to think of all the characters. Lombard. There's Lombard and there's another guy, and I wanted Norton and Bruce Willis, who just worked together, oddly enough, on Motherless Brooklyn, which I think is now available on streaming, and nobody saw that movie in the theaters, but check it out. It's not great, but it's definitely worth a watch. God, what the hell else? Oh, and as Marston, like the sort of young playboy, I had Antonio Banderas. Man, if I had to recast all that now, that'll be a fun other podcast. Maybe when they get a director on board. But really looking forward to that project. What else is happening? Oh yeah, okay. So we got Emilio back on the Mighty Ducks. Now there's word that Rick Moranis is going to officially return for Shrunk, which is the new Honey, I Shrunk the Kid movie with Josh Gad. He's going to be playing Moranis' like grown-up son, so it's his family that this happens to. I think I've been predicting this for a little while. Like, I always knew Rick Moranis is not going to come back for Ghostbusters. You know, he was a supporting character in that. I don't think he wants to deal with like all the bullshit surrounding Ghostbusters. But Honey, I Shrunk the Kid, that fan base is not nearly as toxic. That was his franchise. You know, he was in I think he was in all three of the movies, but he was in at least two of them. And I just felt like if they were ever going to, he doesn't have to deal with like, because it is a theatrical title. It's not a Disney Plus title anymore. I wonder if he just won't have to do nearly as much press. I'm sure that was maybe part of the negotiation, that he wouldn't have to like, do some huge junket or something like that. He'll do select interviews about his return. But I love that this is happening. Rick Moranis, I'd call him a national treasure if he wasn't Canadian. He's the man. He's the man. I loved him in Little Giants. I just fucking love Rick Moranis. So whatever capacity he's in this Shrunk movie, it's great to see him, and congrats to Josh Gad for being the guy who brought him out of retirement. I think that's awesome. I think it points towards a decent script too. The Hunt. The Hunt is coming back March 13th. This was the Damon Lindelof, Craig Zobel movie from Blumhouse that was, it was going to come out, I think, in September, and then it became this political football because it would involve liberal elites hunting conservatives or whatever. Or conservatives hunting elite. I don't even know what the hell it was because Blumhouse hasn't shown it to me. I'm apparently not one of the press elites. But I am going to see it soon. I think it looks really good. I always love the premise. I really like Damon Lindelof. I dig this cast. I've heard good things from those who have seen it. But yeah, I understand if you're Blumhouse why you wouldn't invite me, because the last few Blumhouse movies I've taken a big poop on. And I've also heard horrible things about Fantasy Island. I've heard it's just unwatchable. Normally, I would have been at the theater last night, Thursday opening night, but based on the buzz that I've heard, I may just wait for VOD on that one. Unless Stephanie wants to see it, I'd do anything for my little Valentine. But The Hunt, great release date, Friday the 13th. Can't beat that. Universal has fallen victim to controversy in the past. I think it really did hurt the box office numbers on First Man, and now they're just going to embrace it. It's like, all right, like if this is how you're going to do us, we are going to sort of use it to our advantage, and they are going to make an absolute meal out of the controversy on this movie, The Hunt. So, I'm pulling for Blumhouse. I want to come back. I've heard good things about that movie. I've heard good things about the Halloween sequel. So, Blumhouse is a bit of a roller coaster company. You kind of got to ride the ups and downs, but I think that they do have some fun stuff on the horizon for us. The Goonies. Somebody's trying to do a series about kids who are trying to remake the Goonies. So it's about a teacher who's helping kids remake the Goonies in their small town. It seems like an odd premise. It sounds a lot like the Raiders of the Lost Ark thing. Do kids know the Goonies anymore? Like, who is this show for? Is it for kids who are 12 and 13 who might, see themselves in the show or get inspired to remake one of their own favorite movies? Or is this for people like who are 35 and grew up on the Goonies? I'm not quite sure. It sounds like an interesting hook. I just don't know if it'll make for an interesting series. Yeah, Birds of Prey. Birds of Prey made what, like $33 million this weekend? It was not what Warner Brothers was expecting at all. And I could tell because I got an email from someone at the studio asking for Ali Gemel's email. She obviously handles the box office reports for Collider. So someone was trying to do some damage control at Warner Brothers. God bless them. I mean, they're just doing their jobs. Just as Allie was just doing hers, like just reporting the facts. She's getting the numbers from the trades and everything and analyzing them. And, this was not a good start for Birds of Prey, but, there's not that much opening the next few weeks. I mean, unless you count Sonic the Hedgehog and Fantasy Island and The Photograph this weekend, I think next weekend is even like slimmer pickings. So it could have legs. By the end of the month, Birds of Prey could be in good shape. They also changed the title, in movie theaters, on marquees, and in newspaper listings or whatever on Fandango. Now it's Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey. So they got rid of that stupid fantabulous emancipation. Can you believe it? Comic book movie fans, they didn't want to go see a movie with emancipation in the title. Or just regular movie fans didn't want to see that. Like, you're getting a little too cute. It's called Deadpool, not, it didn't have a 20-word title, Deadpool, Deadpool 2. It should have just been Harley Quinn, Harley Quinn 2. Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey. The whole Birds of Prey, we're going to lead with that, the girl gang element. That, that didn't work. So Warner Brothers made a change, and, sometimes you need a little course correction. Jurassic World 3, bringing back Jake Johnson and Omar Sy. I like these guys from Jurassic World. The first Jurassic World wasn't terrible. The second one wasn't very good. Hey, third time's the charm. This is Colin Trevorrow. He never got to do the Star Wars movie that he thought he was going to do. Now maybe he's taken some of those great ideas from a galaxy far, far away and bringing them to this universe. Who knows? But yeah, everybody's coming back, basically. If you're in a Jurassic movie, you're coming back. We've got, at this point, right, Justice Smith, Daniela Pineda, these two. Goldblum, Sam Neill, Laura Dern, Chris Pratt, Bryce Dallas Howard. Is there anybody? All right, we're waiting for the return of Lauren Lapkus. Whatever happened to her? Did she get eaten by a dinosaur? I can't remember. I've only seen each of those movies once. What else is on the list, guys? Olivia Wilde. She's doing a new movie. I think it's called Perfect. It's about Carrie Strug, the gymnast, who injured herself but went on to finish the routine. It was a very kind of heroic, inspirational move. Gymnastics in general is just super dramatic. The things that these women, put themselves through. A ton of, frankly, sexual abuse in the gymnastics program. I don't know if Carrie Strug was a victim of that or not, but this is definitely an interesting choice for Olivia Wilde. She's still going to do that New Line thriller, Don't Worry, Darling, next. So this is, something that will be a little bit further down the line. But I love the inspirational sports movies, and we don't get enough of them about women. So, can't wait to see who they cast as Carrie Strug, since, it'll really fall on her slender shoulders, whoever it may be. Got the Oscars to talk about. How about that first look at Batman? Woo, boy. That jawline, it's so sexy. I like first of all, the music by Michael Giacchino in this camera test footage was great. Love the score. Love how dark and brooding it is. It was shot in dark room red. Maybe Bruce Wayne's an amateur photographer now. The costume looked interesting. It looked softer. It didn't look so ready for warfare, hard, impenetrable metal. It looked almost like Catwoman's outfit, kind of hand-stitched. And his eyes were interesting. So I posted a photo on my Twitter, and if you guys haven't checked that out, head over there, because I haven't really seen it too many other places. Obviously, I stole it from somebody, since I have no Photoshop skills whatsoever. But they stripped the red out of the image, and you see what he actually looks like in the light. His eyes, you really see the whites of his eyes and how blue they are. That really pops. I mean, as for the rest of the outfit, it's got a little bat thing there. I'm not one who puts a lot of stock in what the new bat suit looks like. I think it's going to take him back to, this is the world's greatest detective, not so much the world's greatest brawler like Ben Affleck's Batman. And I'm all for that, quite frankly. Billie Eilish released her No Time to Die theme song. I heard a couple snippets, 5, 10, 15 seconds here and there, but I'm not listening to the whole song. I want to see that for the first time during the opening titles of No Time to Die. I've always been that kind of person who wants to see the song over the film the first time. From what I heard, though, it didn't sound like a song I'd put on in my car and sing to myself like I did Adele's Skyfall. That was great. So I think that, the Bond theme song thing has gotten a little sort of carried away. It's become this rite of passage, this great honor, and I don't... it's all about how it melds with the opening sequence, whatever that may be, whether it's a live action thing or an animated thing, as we've seen in the past. But I'm really looking forward to No Time to Die. It's going to be Daniel Craig's last time rocking 007's tuxedo, so my hopes are high. Plus, it's Fukunaga. Right, we mentioned Maggie Gyllenhaal earlier. She's also going to be directing a movie. I don't know if I think it's her debut. Olivia Colman's going to star in it. I don't have the details in front of me, so you'll have to go look those up for more. Yeah, I got some Valentine's Day choices for you guys too. But let's talk about the Oscars now. I got about 20 minutes left in this show. So obviously Parasite won. I didn't think that it would happen. I mean, the last few days, the last week, it started to feel inevitable. All the predictions that I was reading short of deadline were like, oh yeah, Parasite's got this. I saw, someone got a whole bunch of honest ballots, and they did a whole chart. And I think 1917 was only projected to win on one or two of them. And that scared me. That's when I was like, oh, man, we have a real problem here. Is Parasite a deserving winner? Sure. Yeah. There was nothing else that screamed Best Picture to me, which is why the entire season on FYC, I was very frank about, I can't tell you what's going to win. I can tell you what's not going to win. And I was adamant that The Irishman wouldn't win. I was adamant that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood would not win. Parasite, again, people have me all wrong on this movie. I think I hated the movie. I thought it was a very, very good movie. I just didn't love the ending. I don't agree with it. And I know I wasn't alone in that. I've heard from so many people, because we're all trained to seek out the voices that we agree with, and so I guess mine was a voice that I heard from a lot of people that they agreed. Were they all voters? No. I just thought it would be indicative of a trend. The thing about Parasite is that, even though I had this huge problem with the ending, I still had it above Irishman and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood on my ballot. And I wouldn't, even though I liked Ford vs. Ferrari more, I wouldn't have, voted that higher for Best Picture than Parasite. Just as I don't know that I necessarily would have done that with Joker either. Like, I love Joker. I probably loved it more than any of the other nominees, maybe aside from Marriage Story. But Joker is not a movie I would necessarily feel comfortable giving Best Picture. Like, those are two different things. So Parasite would, even though I didn't love it, would probably still be in the top 4 of my Best Picture choices. And I think that is ultimately what really helped it, is that it may not have been number 1 on everyone's ballot, but it was on enough. It was, at the number 2 or 3 slot on enough ballots where, people just could not agree on anything else. I thought Jojo Rabbit had a chance at an upset. And listen, that the prediction all along was that something crazy would happen this season, that it wouldn't go to the frontrunner. I didn't know who the frontrunner changed throughout the course of the season, from Irishman to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood to 1917. I felt like something crazy would happen. I think the craziest thing did happen. There was no precedent for this, for a foreign language film winning. I didn't think that the Academy would give it 2 picture awards, since it also won international feature. I didn't think that they would give it all 3 awards with director as well. I mean, I had a feeling it would win screenplay, because I don't think that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was quite. It was great, but it didn't represent Quentin's best work. Marriage Story, I thought, was a real contender for that. But again, in the end, no qualms with Parasite winning Best Original Screenplay. But when it won Best Director, that's when I was like, Jesus, like, they are really going for this. And again, I thought that there might be a split. Like, all right, they're giving it Bong Director, but they're going to give Sam Mendes Picture. No, didn't work out like that. So I think it's a great thing for Hollywood. Like, I think it's a great thing for world cinema. I think that other countries will be emboldened by this win. It's great for South Korea. Like, and I've followed Bong's career. Like, I've actually been watching these movies, whether it's Memories of Murder, Okja, Snowpiercer, Mother. Like, he has always been a really solid director, and he got his due. I thought that everybody was, that they wanted to just, the Academy was all over him, not just because he's not someone who you're going to bump into at the farmer's market. The cast and everybody, they're from Korea, so everybody wanted to make sure to get that time with him, while they were on the campaign trail this season. I don't think that 99% of Hollywood could name any of the actors in Parasite. I think they were just sort of collectively referred to as the Parasite cast, which, certainly has some racial connotations to it, in terms of people remembering or knowing how to pronounce certain names. Maybe they're embarrassed and they don't want to mispronounce things, so they don't even mention the names, or even up until like the last days of covering this Oscar race, like at Your Collider, like, we didn't know, should there be a hyphen in Junho? Is it capital H or lowercase h with the hyphen? Like, I'm telling you. So I got off track there. I don't know what the hell I was trying to say, but I was just I was honestly surprised. But it does prove the strength of the acting branch. Obviously, these guys won the SAG Ensemble Award. Parasite won, and like it's not something that I'm angry about. In fact, none of the Best Picture winners this decade I was really that angry about. It was amazing seeing how angry everybody got when I did my rankings of the Best Picture winners this decade. Oh my God. It's crazy out there. Why isn't Moonlight number 1? Moonlight's the clear number 1. Moonlight has to be the highest. Well, that's how rankings work, guys. It's lower on the rankings because I didn't love it. I liked Parasite definitely more than Moonlight. Parasite was way more in my bag than Moonlight. And it's not because I'm racist, because 12 Years a Slave was number 3. I mean, like, it's just so stupid the way that people reduce your arguments to is it politically correct? Is it woke enough? It's just so, it's unbelievable. And I stand by it. I think La La Land should have won over Moonlight. You know, like, sorry. Part of me wants to see La La Land tonight. I kind of want to take Stephanie out there playing it at Street Food Cinema downtown tonight, but I think we're just staying in, laying low, you know, ordering in. As for, you know, the other stuff that happened at the Oscars, Joaquin, Laura Dern, Renee Zellweger, Brad Pitt, all went as expected. The Screenplay Awards went as expected. I was delighted to see Taika Waititi win for Jojo Rabbit. So glad that film was recognized somehow. It was great to see Brad Pitt. This guy's totally underrated as an actor, and he's overlooked because he's a, you know, they say, oh, well, he's a pretty boy, and he has, this was back in the day, he's a pretty boy, he's got Angelina Jolie, like, you know, it was the same thing that sort of affected Bradley Cooper, like, this guy has everything, do we have to, you know, vote for him? But this was a performance that was undeniable, and as good as the guys in The Irishman were, and Tom Hanks and Anthony Hopkins, like, no one owned the screen. Like, this was a true movie star turn in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Brad Pitt deserves it. So now he's now won as an actor and as a producer. What else won? I mean, split in the sound categories. Like, the Academy is going to be spreading the love going forward. I don't think you're going to see any one movie run away with 10 awards anymore because there's just so many different tastes that are now represented in the Academy since it has diversified more. And I think that is, you know, kind of a great thing. The visual effects thing was interesting. I think it was Aaron Couch over at Hollywood Reporter, may have been somebody else who tweeted that no comic book movie has won the visual effects award since Spider-Man 2 in 2004. That's 15 years. 15 years and a comic book movie hasn't won. And I think it's because the Academy is just really, you know, impressed when you're incorporating visual effects into a true dramatic piece, something like in 1917, which is what won this year. I mean, you know, it's one thing if you want to give it to Guardians of the Galaxy or the first installment in something. But when it's Avengers Endgame, the fourth film in the Avengers franchise, like what is in this movie that I haven't seen before? I don't understand. What is new in this Star Wars Rise of the Skywalker movie that I haven't seen before? It's all pretty much the same shit. And it's supposed to be because it's of a piece with the franchise. So not surprised that neither of those movies won. Yeah, I lost $40 to Scott Mance on my bet. I won 20 from my pal film nerd Jamie, who had said that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was definitely going to win. So I got the whole field on that. So I cut my losses there. Online, I had way too much money on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That did not pan out for me. Neither of my animated upsets hit. I thought Klaus or I Lost My Body were going to win me a few $100 a piece. Not to be. Toy Story 4 won, and I can't argue with that because it's a great movie. It was my number 5 film of last year. It was beautiful. I, again, didn't think that they would go for the fourth film in a franchise when there were other strong contenders. But clearly it didn't matter. Toy Story just strikes a nerve with some people. What else? All right. Let's talk about Ruffalo. So, I feel like it was maybe a week or two before the Oscars, I'd heard that they were eyeing Ruffalo and a certain actress for the leads in Parasite. And I was like, it's super early. Like, there's no way that they make any decisions or anything like that before the award show. Like, they got to see what Parasite's awards fate is in the first place. And so I started making calls, and I kept hearing that the actress that I had, that she was wrong. And I just did not have that correct. And so I had already written the story by that point, so I had to rewrite the story. And then I heard another actress, and it wouldn't necessarily be a surprising actress, if you catch my drift. And I found out that was also, premature. I mean, everything was premature, but again, the constant in the rumor was Mark Ruffalo. First, I'd heard one actress, then another actress, but both times it was Ruffalo. And, you know, I checked with we made a lot of calls. Like, I made dozens of calls on this. And, you know, HBO was like, this is like super early. Like, there's just nothing. There's nothing there. There's no script. It's just an idea. We don't even know like who anyone would play at this point. But it's like, and I fully acknowledge that we went with the story earlier than we would go with most stories. That's 100%. And I apologize to HBO for that. But when you have something with a profile as high as the Parasite TV series, and the fact that everybody would be asking about it at the Oscars, and that if I'm hearing it, my sources are hearing it, then other places are hearing it as well, I just don't see how there's not an element of truth to it. And so, you know, HBO sort of called my bluff, and they went on the record with a statement. They said this is, I think the statement said it was just very wildly premature. Was the phrase that they use. And listen, they're not wrong. It is wildly premature, but something being wildly premature doesn't really mean that it's wrong. It just means that it's early. And I had heard, like I said, from multiple people that Bong had engaged in some conversations with Mark Ruffalo. Mark Ruffalo is one of the best-known actors in the world. And I know you're like, wait, really? Why? What would make... I mean, he's an Avenger. He's an Avenger... And quite frankly, he's the best actor among the Avengers. I mean, you're not going to argue that it's Chris Evans or Chris Hemsworth or, you know, Paul Rudd or, you know, it's just like it's obviously him or Downey. And, I mean, Downey may have been the answer to that question 15, 20 years ago. But I don't know. Like, you look at the track records lately, Mark Ruffalo is the best actor in the Avengers. He's super well known around the world. He's one of the best-known superheroes, and he's been consistent. It's not like, you know, Batman, who it seems like there's a new Batman every few years. Like, he's been the Hulk for a while now. Never had his own movie, but he does have his own HBO series coming out where he plays dual roles. He plays twin brothers. So this is like, you know, couldn't be further from Parasite. There's no real overlap there. I think that Mark Ruffalo, again, I don't know what the role would be, but when you're building a cast, you start with the biggest role first. And even though Parasite was an ensemble piece, the biggest role in the film was kind of seen as Song Kang-ho, who is the patriarch of the poor family. I don't know that there's going to be a rich family and a poor family in the Parasite TV series. I don't know that the characters are going to necessarily mirror each other from the film. But Mark Ruffalo exudes a certain blue-collarness that I don't think that a lot of big stars exude. I don't think you'd buy Tom Cruise as like the patriarch of a poor family or Brad Pitt as the patriarch of a poor family, but you could picture Ruffalo sort of being a little down on his luck, and desperate and willing to do, you know, whatever it is. I mean, you could picture a whole bunch of people like that, Michael Keaton, you know, whoever it may be. But yeah, so, you know, we gave everybody ample opportunity to respond, and we decided we're going to hold this we wanted to go a week before we did. So voting was still open that Monday, and we decided not to do it during voting. So we waited for voting to close, and then we made another decision that let's wait and see what happens with Parasite over the weekend. I don't want to do it before the award show because then sort of could, you know, risk overshadowing something or, you know, and then I don't want Bong to be doing a ton of interviews on Sunday night where everybody's asking him about that. And he's like, oh, you know, no, that's bullshit, whatever. Like, it always made more sense to wait and see what would happen with Parasite and then go after that, regardless of whether it wins or loses. And so everybody, you know, HBO, Ruffalo's team, they'd all been notified, you know, over the weekend that this story was coming no matter what on Monday. And Steve and I had, a ton of discussions about it. Is this something that we want to do? And ultimately, we're not saying that he has been cast. It's a snapshot of where things stand at the moment. And I showed and shared correspondence that I had with sources with Steve, and he made the decision to sign off on it. And then a few hours later, TMZ tracks Mark Ruffalo down at an airport and starts grilling him on it. And to be clear, I don't really think Mark Ruffalo confirmed anything. I don't think he really tipped his hand at all. It was all like, that would be great. I would be so flattered. Like, yeah, I want to be a part of it. He didn't confirm my reporting necessarily, but the way that TMZ framed it certainly made us look good. And so I appreciated it. And then if you read Deadline's story closely about Parasite in the TV series, it also says that there's some chatter about Mark Ruffalo. So to have Deadline back us up on that, I think that was just very gratifying. And, credit to Steve for coming to this editorial decision with me, because I promise you, and I promise HBO, who has always given me a home on Emmy night and on Golden Globe night, a place to celebrate. And I really do have a very good relationship and a lot of respect for the folks at HBO. But it's like I had to do my job. And if I had to sacrifice those invites, then so be it. That is the job. That is the job. And there's going to be something probably this afternoon that I'd go with. Not HBO, a similar situation, though. And it's like, I'm sorry, and if you want to spite me and not give me access to whatever, then that is your prerogative, but I am here doing my job. And I that's just the nature of the gig. So that was a little bit of, inside baseball with regards to the Mark Ruffalo Parasite story. Other stuff that I saw this week, I saw Boss Level. We had a screening of that, the new Joe Carnahan movie. It's a time loop movie. There's definitely some fun stuff in there, some fun action stuff, particularly with Frank Grillo. But I can't say it was for me. I did not tweet anything because it's still very early on Boss Level. There's not even a trailer. I don't know if the film has distribution yet. And when we do these Collider screenings with filmmakers, there's a sort of tacit sort of thing where it's like, listen, if at least for a movie that doesn't have a release date or distribution or anything yet, like if you don't like it, you don't need to go blabbing about that. And so I didn't tweet anything, and I don't think that this podcast reaches nearly as many people as my Twitter does. But I will be honest, as a huge fan of Joe Carnahan, he knows that I love him and his work. Grillo knows that I love him and his work. I thought that there was, I had some issues with the movie and the script and the plot. But, that's not really what you're going to see a movie like that for. I just felt like Mel Gibson was, a little wasted, kind of a thankless role for Naomi Watts. But, is it a fun way to kill 88 minutes on a Sunday on Netflix if that's where it ends up popping up? Sure. Same as Wheelman, same as the other Point Blank movie with Grillo and Anthony Mackie. And you can do worse, but you can probably do better. Dinner in America, that was the last Sundance movie that I reviewed. I really liked it. I think I gave it a B+. Could have been an A-. Like, just a really enjoyable romantic comedy. And we're going to be talking about more romantic comedies in the last couple minutes of this show, just in time for Valentine's Day. But it's Kyle Gallner and Emily Skeggs, and they're these two misfits who kind of get thrown together. And it's a very sweet, charming movie wrapped in a punk package. These characters don't look like they'd be the leads in a sweet rom-com, but they are. I also saw The Vast of Night, which I was really excited about. I saw that yesterday. I was a little tired during the screening, so, I'll admit that may have colored my reaction, but it wasn't for me. That's another one where I was just like, what? I needed more of a script. I need more of a story, and I loved some of the cinematography in this, and I love the score. The score for The Vast of Night is excellent. But yeah, I just felt very slow and a little annoying. The two lead characters, it was tough to even make out what they were saying some of the time. Just didn't really felt like it added up to that much. And speaking of The Hunt, which we talked about earlier in this episode, I embarked on a different hunt last night. Hunters, the new Amazon series from Jordan Peele. As much as I'd love to tell you about it, it is embargoed for a few more days, so you'll have to wait for next week's episode for my take on that. I've seen... By the time next week's episode rolls around, I will have seen 5 episodes. But the first episode is 90 minutes. I will say that much. And if you're making a bad show, you typically don't go along with it. That's all I'll say. Finally, yes, Valentine's Day. I hope you got your little sweetie something or other, or your man, or whoever it may be. Just want to run down some of my favorite romantic comedies. Angus You don't think of that as a romantic comedy, but it's all about a guy sort of learning how to dance and impress the girl. Angus is one of my favorite childhood movies. Track it down if you can. I don't know if that's a Disney movie. If it is, it should be on Disney+. Gotta look. Clueless, an odd rom-com because it's about a brother and sister, half-sister, whatever. A little weird, but a great movie nonetheless. Long Shot came out last year. Seth Rogen, Charlize Theron. That's one of the best rom-coms I've seen in a while. There's Something About Mary. Hilarious. 10 Things I Hate About You. Just, that's like one of the best rom-coms because it really touches your heart. When Harry Met Sally. I'm a late comer to this movie. I really don't think I watched When Harry Met Sally until like last year or 2 years ago. Absolutely fantastic. It's just great. 40-Year-Old Virgin, a classic. Same with Knocked Up. My Best Friend's Wedding is just a delight. It's wonderful. The Big Sick, if you haven't seen that, that's streaming on Amazon Prime. Just Friends. Can't go wrong with Ryan Reynolds, right? Some Kind of Wonderful with Eric Stoltz and Mary Stuart Masterson. I love that movie. 500 Days of Summer is a weird one because, maybe there's not that happy of an ending, but I don't know. I still enjoy watching it. It's a good couples movie. Same with Don John, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's directorial debut. I don't think Stephanie's seen that. I want to show that to her. Chasing Amy. Maybe you're a lesbian couple. Maybe you pine for a lesbian like Ben Affleck does in this film. But I love Chasing Amy from Kevin Smith. The Spectacular Now with Miles Teller and Shailene Woodley. That's also a little bit dark and more dramatic. Me and You and Everyone We Know, the Miranda July movie with John Hawkes, and Chris Rock's Top 5 with Rosario Dawson. Those are just some of my favorite rom-coms. If you haven't seen any of those, check them out tonight. Guys, thank you for listening to the Sneider Cut. This has just been, wonderful. You're all my Valentines. So celebrate tonight, and I will still be here for you next week. Make sure to tell a friend, share this podcast, tweet about it, Instagram it, Facebook it. All that stuff. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Cameo at the InSneider. May Cupid strike you with his arrow. We'll see you next week. Love you guys.